Hello, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of the Midwest Gaming Classic podcast. I'm your host, Jason Garris, panel director of the Midwest Gaming Classic. And this podcast episode is all about the motion capture evolution. Join the actors from Mortal Kombat and Angus from Kasumi Ninja as they talk about how motion capture worked way back in the day with original 2D and how it has progressed as technology and time have marched to full-on 3D and beyond. And you know what? Enough of me talking. Why don't we get to the podcast?
Check. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Hey, everybody. Hello. Hi. Any Mortal Kombat fans in the house? That's it? Just half of you? What do you have? The other half are Kasumi Ninja fans. That's why they're here, yeah.
And exactly. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans. Woo! We just had that Vanilla Ice song, and it just reminds me of when we were filming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I did stunts. My brother and I did stunts for that franchise, and we had 4 days of that constantly going on for 12 hours a day, over and over and over and over and over again, repeating the same movements over and over and over again. So, but it was really, really fun. It was really so much fun.
So you have a horrible.
Where you're like really hyped about it when you're in that moment.
Yeah.
And then on day 2, you're like, oh my god, this is like just looping this.
Yeah, and then there's day 3.
You had more than one day.
I can only imagine what you felt when you walked into this room and the song is playing and you're like, oh, I can't escape this.
Yeah, and then there's day 4 and you're still hearing that song.
So we're here to talk about your guys' time, obviously, with games, Mortal Kombat, Kasumi Ninja in your case. And the wacky way the motion was captured in those games. There is footage online now of you guys walking on treadmills and standing on boxes, and just it wasn't the way it is now. So why don't you just tell us a little bit, Daniel? Why don't we start with you, just about like how that process even happened to get to the point where Mortal Kombat was made.
I am martial art master Daniel Casina. I am the first stunt performer to fight design a martial art, live martial art game. So it was the first one of its kind. The process was John Tobias putting me in front of a camera and saying, do something cool. So I developed the whole fight design from the ground up. Basically with no mat or no guidance whatsoever. So it was just new territory. There was no all on concrete, falling on concrete, getting to the point to be like, hey, we're going to have other stunt performers in here, and maybe they don't want to fall on concrete because they're not paying them. So, to today, having actors doing their own stunts back in those days, that would not be possible. They couldn't do it. It's something that you cannot do. So doing everything. So when you see those videos online, those are my videos that I released. So everything you see online about the performance, those are, that's what I did. Created boxes, created squares, framed out things. Then as this franchise progressed, my brother carried on that and proceeded to escalate the technology with that. Hi, everyone.
Now, like my brother said, we started off with a friend asking us to come in. My brother did the groundwork for, him and Tobias with the choreography, the fight design, combat design, as well as a few other people. And then we were asked to come in after that was proven, more or less. They had a pipeline. And this is the 2D era where you would like chroma key people out. You'd have a green screen. You would use videotape. Midway had their own proprietary software. Warren developed some of the software, and then eventually went to like Deluxe Paint, the old 2D program, and then Photoshop. Then after that, I was hired on Midway. I was an illustrator at the time, going to school, and I knew part of that tech. And you would learn everything about video gaming while you were working. and you had and it was so, not that it was a cutthroat thing, but it was more or less you had to figure everything out within 2 weeks or a week. You didn't want to be left behind. So I don't know, maybe 2 years after I did my first game, they had a motion capture studio set up. They had guys there. I ended up learning the software. We had, motion analysis, some other Vicon, and then eventually I switched over to OptiTrack. I stayed on the game development for 28 plus years. I ran their motion capture studio for NetherRealm and for Warner Brothers for close to 12, 15 years. I ran their studio, I did stunt work for them. I also did some combat design, some illustration. And like my brother said, back in the day, you had to do stunts like Jackie Chan and act, and then, that's just, seeing my brother and seeing myself like trying to flourish and become, a lot of the people that defined us and trying to be that. And then also going into the art side, motion capture, cleanup, doing the work pipeline. I designed the pipeline since MK5 all the way up to now. They're still using it, but I retired 2 years ago. So, I still keep in touch with people there. And, it's fun to just reminisce about all that.
course.
Sometimes I miss it, but sometimes you're like, well, I want to sit on my deck and smoke my cigar.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And then have moments like this to reminisce. I do want to talk about Mortal Kombat in a bit, but let's get to that era. Spawned a lot of, I don't know if competitive is a very strong word, but like inspired games, right, of its time. Violence, ridiculousness, turn up the ridiculous up to 11.
Yeah.
And one of those, of course, was Kasumi Ninja on the Atari Jaguar, which brings us to Ian, who played Angus in the game. You have a tremendous origin story to how you even got involved in this game. Can you please share that with us?
Do you want to hear all of it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I had absolutely nothing to do with gaming. I had no idea what I was doing. I got a phone call one day. I was a competitive karate guy. I was competing internationally as an article bouncer for 15 years in England. And a friend of mine phones me. I say to a friend, and he said, I've got this gig for you. And I thought he was pulling a chain. He said, do you want to be in a video game? Yeah, go on then, let's do it. Give it a go. So I drove from Coventry to Manchester, like 60 miles to Manchester. Those are the days though where you had no GPS. So 1994, so I got a map out and I jotted down where to go and got lost loads of times. Found this building, it wasn't even a real studio, I would call it being a building. And I've walked in thinking, right, this is definitely, I've been set up. My friends have set me up. But I've got anyway. And I've walked through the door, I opened the door, and there's a woman standing there naked. And I thought, yeah, exactly. And I thought, I have been set up. This is a porn shoot. That's what I thought. But my second thought was, I wonder how much they're paying. Do I stay? So, but then it turned out to be this game, Kasumi Ninja, that wanted this Scottish brawler. And so I get ready, green screen, same thing.
Yeah.
Put the kilt on, beard, glued it onto my face. And I go to do what they asked me to do. And I asked them, what do you want from me? And the guy said, well, similar to your story, make it up.
Yeah.
I said, we've no idea. What do you want to do? So if you've watched Kasumi Ninja, if you've seen the character Angus firing something from under his kilt, that was my idea. Yeah. Kicking the head off and then headbutting it, that was my idea too. So I take complete, like yourself, I take complete credit for the nonsense that is that character. But it was definitely an eye-opener, and it opened doors, silly as it sounds, doing a game opened doors to many other things.
I want to, when you say, what do you want to do? Like when you're in front of the green, all three, this is a question to all three of you. When you're put in front of that green screen or in the motion capture realm, and they're just like, give us whatever you want. What do you want to do? What ideas do you have? Like, a lot of the moves in Mortal Kombat, for example, are like pretty memorable signature moves. You know, Johnny Cage does the splits and punches you, you know? Like, these are things that people remember today. Like, are these things that you're just thinking of on the fly, or as you do a couple punches and you're like, actually, let me try this. Like, how does that even come to you?
Well, when John asked me for help to pitch the game to Midway, you know, he was like, I was a geek. My brother and I are geeks. We collected comic books already and went to anime conventions, stuff like that. So when he was like, hey, I want to do a live action fighting game, but I want the fighters to actually know martial arts. And I was like, I know exactly what you mean, because I played Street Fighter and I love Street Fighter, but I knew, like when I watched the techniques of Street Fighter, I was like, nobody ever punches and kicks like that. You would hurt yourself if you did that. And I was like, oh, this is awesome, because we can make it real. You know, so I was like, I'm gonna get a chance to make like Street Fighter, but real Street Fighter. Not, you know, not fake, not that it's fake, but to make it like look real, because it's gonna be real people doing that. So I was just like, had all these ideas like that we were gonna do. So, you know, when we were first had our meeting we put together a proof of concept, and John presented that to Midway, and then Midway sent a representative, a programmer, to listen to our pitch. But we had we had all these ideas like that we were pulling from anime, X-rays and tag teams and, you know, blood in the game and all these ideas, but we pulled them out of all the stuff that was happening, like culturally, like the things that we liked, Fist of the North Star and Kung Fu movies, and, you know, we had so many ideas that the lead programmer would just absorb all these ideas and use them until, you know, even later on, I would see these ideas and I'd be like, holy cow, we had that in MK1. You know, some of the ideas would still be coming out later on. So, you know, I think that there was just stuff that we wanted to see, and, you know, from our childhood, just stuff that was out during that era that we wanted to see in a game.
I think, like my brother said, he's touching upon that culture and subculture. And also, Ian can attest to this when you're a martial artist, and we all love, like, action. And we wanted to be sort of an actor, but not knowing that, hey, we got to work our 9-to-5 jobs and also love doing martial arts, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, bringing up that kilt, you know, that's probably something you were just like, oh, you know, goofing around. And yeah.
Well, it was goofing around because the only direction I got, if anything, was we don't want it really to look karate. We don't want it to look like a martial art thing. You're supposed to be a brawler.
Yeah.
And you've heard of tossing the caber. Yeah, tossing the caber, it's a Scottish part of the sport where you've got to pick this big tree trunk basically, turn it over.
Yeah.
So that's the only direction I think that I got. So we needed to bend down and pretend you're throwing this log over. And that's the only thing, as I recall, that I got as any kind of direction at all. Just be a brawler, throw some kicks and punches, but try and not make it look technically proficient karate-wise.
Yeah.
So I had to try and be a little bit scruffy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like dirty.
A bit dirty, yeah. So, and I think it turned out pretty well that way.
What what type of influences did you have in your background to like, hey, I want to start doing martial arts? You know what I mean?
Did you watch Kung Fu movies?
Oh, always.
Shokashugi?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. That was that's Bruce Lee
Yeah.
back in the day.
Bruce.
That like 1975, 76.
Yeah.
That was the influence of everybody. We all wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So that was the main influence, I guess.
That's great. How was it? I mean, because this is our first time meeting, and I got like tons of questions for you.
Yeah.
If you don't, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How were your parents? Did they encourage that, or did you, how did the parents accept or tell you, hey, you got to go do this or whatever?
I have recently, last June, self-published my first book, and
How that happened is a crazy story
That's
too,
a crazy.
right?
That's a crazy story too. Yeah, I was, as a child, had no confidence whatsoever, zero confidence. In actual fact, I had any confrontation I would run away from, and I realised it was possible. Maybe age 14, 15, I realised it was possible to create different personalities to deal with situations.
Yeah.
And I literally became somebody different for different circumstances.
Yeah.
So, and involved in karate, martial arts, you understand how that works.
Yeah.
And I got very good at competition karate, which is different to a street fight. Totally different.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I'm very good at fighting. A guy comes to the club, great taekwondo guy, strong background in boxing. They send him to me, and I spar with him, and I destroy him. I'm only 19 years of age, I destroy him. And he says to me, you ever thought about working on a nightclub door? And I said, well, no, not really. I don't want to lie to him, I don't lie to myself. I'm scared of that kind of stuff. But he said, no, I'll look after you. Come and work with me. So I worked with him, and my very first night, I saw somebody glassed in the face, somebody hit with a chair.
Wow.
It was just, I had no idea. I was absolutely terrified. I quit the same night I finished. I got a black belt on my waist, and I was scared of the fight. And I couldn't live with it. I just could not live with it. And then it occurred to me, I realised what I needed to change. No matter how good I became at fighting, I could be a phenomenal fighter. The only thing I need to be good at was violence. If I can become good at violence, I can deal with a situation that is a violent situation. And one of the things I put in the book, which is, some people kind of argue with the sentiment, is that one of the things I say, and when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. I say, men don't typically get attacked. And you all go, hold on a second, how can that happen to you? Of course they do. People get mugged, they get attacked. And I say, well no, men typically don't get attacked. What happens is their ego gets attacked. They then get into fights. Imagine a pub situation where you've got something going on. Why don't you get up and leave? When somebody's arguing with you, when somebody's being aggressive, there's no ropes around you. You're not tied, you're not handcuffed. You get up and leave, but you don't because you're your friends that think you're weak.
Yeah.
I learned to say, when somebody calls you out when they're rude, they're aggressive, I learned to say, you're right, I'm off, I'll just leave. Just leave.
Yeah.
It's over. But it's your ego that makes you stay.
Yeah.
If your ego gets into a fight, you get into a fight, the person you're fighting with is connected, it's local mafia, you got a world of trouble now.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Or you hit him and you kill him. You're in a world of trouble now. You know what you should have done?
Walk away.
Just walk away. But that's why the gaming, fighting gaming, is it's a release. It's something interesting you can do in a game and turn it off and walk away.
Well, I think you bring up a good point because we're the same way. Like when we were capturing, you brought up a point of, and it's not a well. I mean, if people want to argue about psychology or psychiatry about multiple personalities, I'm not here to voice that. I'm just here to say that when we're in that mode, we take on a certain persona.
Right.
Correct. Right. And that's all of us here.
Right.
I think you should be able to. And once again, I've learned to turn it on and off like instantly when they say, "Hey, action, get into character," and then cut get out of character.
But that's the same thing in real life.
Exactly, that's what the point I was getting at.
If you can turn on a character you need.
Yes.
One of the things I did as a 15-year-old, because I was scared of meeting people, talking to people, lack of confidence, I would walk into a supermarket, a large store, and purposely go up to the assistant and ask her something that I knew where it was. I just walk up and just talk to her, and then she would say, "Oh, it's over there." I start a conversation with somebody on purpose. I'll become somebody different. And it's
No, you were
Yeah,
setting up that moment and then turning on another moment.
We're here too. We do cosplay now. You know,
Yeah.
we become somebody different with cosplay. It's the same thing, but happening different. It's the same but different. Wow.
See, you all came here thinking you would learn about fatalities and stuff, but instead we're getting a deep psychological conversation about life.
Yeah.
You're finding
Funny how life works like
You're
that.
finding out that you're not so different than us.
Yeah.
That we're all the same.
Exactly.
We're all geeks. We really are.
Yeah.
We're all gamers.
I would absolutely guarantee that every single person in this room has got self-doubts, has got problems, has got worries, and it stops them, it holds them back. But if they could create a personality, just take care of that, because we all do it. We do it for minutes at a time, hours at a time, and then go back to who we really are.
For me, when it wasn't, working on Mortal Kombat, I never thought it was going to be the greatest game ever. I just thought it was going to be the coolest time working with my brother and my friends, working on a project that I had free reign on. Because John was just like, you guys can do whatever you want. We didn't have there was nobody.
There's no micromanagement.
No micromanagement.
Right.
We didn't have anybody breathing down my neck. It was just my brother, John, Rich. That's it. 3 friends.
It's very rare.
There was nobody else, because nobody else ever created. This was the first time anything was ever being created. There was nobody else in the room. I mean, later on we had other tier co-creators, but at that time the first tier co-creators were just 4 friends, just trying to come up with ideas to do a game, because there was nothing ever. John described it perfect. One day I was like, he was like, we can't have anybody else because there's nothing for us to give them, because nobody else, nobody else knows what we're doing, because there's nothing to be done. There's no ideas. We got to come up with the ideas to inspire other people to see our vision of the game, because otherwise we can bring people in, but they're like, we don't get it. We don't see your vision of this thing you want to create. So we were just kind of, what if we do this, or what if we do that? And a lot of times I would be, the first 3 days I would be repeating the same movement like 50 times. Filming for hours, 50 times, and then John was like, hey, instead of doing the movement 50 times, do it 20 times and then change it in a small way, and just keep on doing that for hours. And so, when you watch the filming of Mortal Kombat right now, Mortal Kombat 1, you are seeing a few hours of a video game that literally had maybe 900 hours of videotape. So I have 7.5 hours of videotape of a game that had over 900 hours of videotape. That's how that game was created. It wasn't just like, there was no really, we were creating stuff and then we'd have to come back and refilm stuff because we came up with something different. It was like all of a sudden we created something that was better than before, so we had to come back and shoot reactions to something that we would create. All of a sudden we were like, holy cow, that's great. Now we got to come back and reshoot something to support what we just created. It was like so crazy.
What you guys talked about creative freedom. What about the fatalities?
Fatalities. So John and I were looking at, we were shooting for like forever, and it was like, you know, I wanted like different reactions to everything. So if you threw a punch, it would depend on how hard I got hit, and I'd have a reaction. And then if I got hit a little harder, I had this idea that every hit would have like 4 or 5 different strengths of reaction. And so I would react like this, and then they'd react like this. So finally, the reaction you see in the game where you're like finally where the guy is really dizzy, you know, was the final reaction. But when we were looking at it, I kind of looked at John, and we were looking at it. John was like, "That's kind of boring," and I was like, just like, it can't end that way. And then John was like, "Yeah, I can't finish this way," and I was like, "Yeah, we can't finish it like this." And then John was just like, "Yeah, we have to find some way to finish him, like in a kung fu movie where you got that deadly strike at the end, where he finally finishes the guy." And then we were just kind of, and we're like, "Yeah, we got to finish him." And that's where it was like, "Yeah, we got to have finishing moves." And later on, it became a fatality. But that's why we came up with that phrase. John and I came up with that phrase. We're finishing. We got to figure out a way to finish him. And we were like, "Well, how should we do that?" John was like, "Well, how do you want to finish him?" And so I was like, "Oh, we got to have 3 ways of finishing him." So originally we wanted each character to have 3 fatalities in the first game. But then it became too complicated because, you know, it took so long. Like, you know, the character that later on, you know, became Johnny Cage took like 3 or 4 months to complete. You know, if you look at it, like, that character took like 4 months to complete, while the last character we shot was Liu Kang, which took literally like 2 weeks to complete, because we already had it so locked down that this is what we needed, and we let, you know, when we brought Ho-Sung to do that character, and we already knew like to streamline it. We were like, "Oh, this is what we need," and we would let Ho-Sung create like Liu Kang within certain guidelines. He had free reign to pick the moves and the personality of Liu Kang. And we found it easiest to be like, let the actors just pick part of themselves to be the personality. So if you meet Rich, go talk to Rich, you're gonna be like, "Oh my God, Rich is Kano." Or if you go talk to Ray Carlos, you're like, "Oh, great it is." You know, so when you see people from Mortal Kombat 1 and some of them from 2, they are the characters, because it's easier to act like yourself than to channel like a character, because there's, you know, John was never like, "Act like this." He would just be like, let you do whatever you wanted.
Do you guys all know, did you all know each other before you did this, or are you all still friends? You all know each other?
Yeah, we knew each other from way back when. I used to watch Carlos and John Tobias and our friend Andrew Kadelka, who helped John draw the first comic book, you know, drawing at my mother's kitchen table when they were younger. You know, practically we were on artwork, yeah.
He's 9 years older than me, so most of my friends were, you know, when we were like 15, 16, we all had a group growing up, and it's like high school. You know one set of friends from this high school, another set from another one, and we'd all get together. And it's like that mid-'80s vibe where you go to the club and they would have, like non-alcoholic drink bars and dancing, pick up chicks and try to do all that, just the regular stuff. And we were all in artwork, all in the martial arts. You had break dancing in it, and that was the culture back then. It was just a little different.
Right. So you're a team.
Yes.
I never met any of the actors apart from seeing that naked girl.
Nice.
Well, you were lucky.
Yeah. I've never seen them again. In fact, never seen them at all. I was there on my own. Did my little bit in front of the green screen, walked away. I I don't know the names. I don't know who they are.
Who gave
I don't
you
know what
the-
they're doing.
Who gave you the call? Was it a friend or
Yeah.
a local?
No, it's a friend said handmade software in Manchester. They need somebody for this character, and I went over, did my. We were talking earlier.
Yeah.
When I left the shoot, I never saw them again.
Wow.
I never spoke to them again.
Really?
I didn't see any of the characters. I even had to buy my own console. I had to buy a Atari Jaguar.
This is ridiculous.
I had to buy that, and then I had to buy the game to play it.
Yeah.
It cost me more to buy it than I got paid to do it.
How did you find your way into coming to events? I mean, how did that door open?
Yeah, actually,
This happened because of the book. The chapter called Angus McGregor. There's somebody online. Somebody bought the book who was a gamer, and he reached out to me and said, "Do you go to conventions?" And I said, "No, I never have." So he gave me a few contacts, and then within a few weeks, I was speaking to the guys here, and then boom, and I've had 3 or 4 more since then to appear at. So yeah. But it's strange how you plant a seed 30 years ago, you walk away, and then something grows out of
it's
it.
huge. You know what I mean? And then you read a book as well.
Yeah.
It's an incredible journey.
Yeah.
I just want to stress, just to say this again. So he does this video game, okay, and he has to buy the console,
Oh, yeah.
and he has to buy the game just to see himself in the game. So they did not provide him with a copy of the game that he's in, and it costs him more money to buy the Atari and the game than it did to actually appear in the game.
Society.
But I did see a naked woman.
That's priceless.
Well, here you go. I didn't get paid for the first 6 weeks of creating Mortal Kombat.
You didn't get paid.
I didn't get a dime.
Right.
And I created the pathway to the game, and I didn't get paid 1 cent. That's how cheap these companies are.
Yeah.
But they sure made billions on it.
Yeah.
But that's the way, that's the way it goes.
I am now seeing, and I'm very ignorant to apologise to the gaming, but I'm now seeing on YouTube my character fighting you guys.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Crossover.
So
That's
somebody's taken the character out and they've got
that is so
something.
awesome.
Yeah.
The internet's wild. So Carlos, you worked on many Mortal Kombats.
Yes.
So, like-
until MK1.
Yeah, right. So how did that process change over the years to where it is now, which is it feels like a AAA giant big budget game, which it is, right? Like that's where we are now to where it started. Like how did that change over the years?
Well, from the 2D aspect, there was and this has to be between 95 and 2002. There's a changeover into the console side with Nintendo and having the Super Nintendo and then the GameCube and also having the PS2. And the change was people weren't going to the arcades anymore and spending their quarters. A lot of young people were staying home, and we had to, as a gaming company, attack that market more or less and transition. And the transition from arcade to console was very difficult. Meaning for Midway games, at least, more or less, because you had brand new hardware and everything, and we were still doing the rotoscoping, and still trying to apply some mocap work to it. And for us, it was me and a couple other guys. It was literally 2 weeks. You have to learn you're going from 2D now. You got to go to the nodes and the 3D mocap stuff, and you have to learn it real quick. Otherwise, you're left behind. There's somebody else hungrier than you. And this is like anything else that we do in our lives. You apply yourself, and you're like, holy cow, I have to make this transition from 2D. Because I worked on a hockey game, and it was all 2D.
Which one was that?
That was NHL Open Ice.
Open Ice, yeah, 2 on 2, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that was Jack Hager was the art director on that. He was fantastic. Yeah, he was a legend. And you know, I was transitioning over from, and this is the point of MK3 to MK4, to jump on John Tobias' team to do Special Forces, and then eventually, or first Mythologies and then Special Forces, and we were transitioning at that point from 2D to 3D, and that's how we got into motion capture more or less, because they bought a system, we had a flock of birds, we also had motion analysis, and literally we're like, you know, I would put the suit on and I'd do some moves, and then from that point on, it was just transitioning over to mocap. You know, and it's
Incredible.
yeah, and knowing the pipeline from like these guys acting, and then I would strip out sprites or I would clean up data, and then eventually, you know, put it onto a 3D character. Somebody else would model it, but just learning that whole process.
Crazy how we come. Who has questions in the audience? Anybody? Just raise your hand. You've got a question. There's a wireless mic that we will pass around.
So it's not a question. I just wanted to say thank you for talking about the importance of motion capture, because like there's a lot of games and shows that don't do motion capture and they do fight scenes. It's like nobody's moving with weight. It just everything seems like feathery. But like when you have a real body that's being tracked, all of the combat feels authentic, and that's a really beautiful thing you guys do.
To your point, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So coming from a martial arts background and then getting into the video game industry, do you still see like a mental connection between your traditional martial arts and what you did in the games, or are they just completely mentally like separate entities to you now? Because you know, different purposes or different ways that you're performing for the games and stuff like that.
Well, traditional martial arts is for combat, and then, you know, you have, for me, you have 3 tiers of martial arts. You have the traditional, which is for combat, and you have a sport martial art, and then sports martial art, you can break it up into different groups, whether it's for sport fighting or for you know, competition as far as, you know, not fighting, but just for performance, like, you know, where you're doing kata or kun or forms or something like that without the contact, or even weapons. And then you have the 3rd tier, which is for entertainment, you know, where the movement has to be bigger, it's more flashy, where it wouldn't actually work in, you know, in a fighting aspect, because it has to be bigger, because you have to see the movement to understand the movement. You know, actual combat is pretty ugly, because it, you know, because combat is ugly. So, you know, it's just that. So you know, it took me a while to, you know, to really separate that, to be like, to enjoy a movie just for entertainment. Because, you know, for a while I was like, oh no, that technique is terrible, oh, like that. Until finally I was just like, you know, you just gotta let that go and just enjoy a movie for entertainment. You know, and then too, to be like, you know, I used to, you know, watch people fight in the ring, you know, and be like, well, you know, people fighting in the ring have to have safety, because, you know, killing people is bad, you know, for entertainment. That's like, you know, we shouldn't be doing that. You know, the days of the gladiator weren't good. So you know, we should be kind to each other and not do that. So, you know, with that, for me, with, you know, I had to understand that. So I can understand each one has value. You know, so you have traditional, and you can take that, you know, with a traditional martial artist, you can take that until you're 100 years old and practice it that way. And for sport, it's for young people. You know, you do that for competition, whether you want to step in the ring or just do it for performance, whatever it is. And for movie, it's an entertainment. You know, you just do it to entertainment group, and that's awesome too.
I think the companies that picked us 3, like Ian himself, he adapted pretty quickly. You know, and I'm not saying like super fast, but you understood what you needed to do.
Right.
The same with my brother and myself. We were able to like change, once again, going back to your reference, that persona.
Right.
Did you have any difficulty when you went in there? Like, hey, dude, I know you're a brawler, more or less. You could fake that.
What's the question?
The question is, how easy was it for you to transition from traditional to when you went on to film, your character?
The ability to, the question about being a martial artist, martial art, karate, any kind of training is about, it's bettering yourself. It's making you fitter, making you stronger mentally and physically. Very rarely do you see flashy, high spinning kicks in a street fight. It doesn't happen. It's great for training, it's great skill, but a street fight is pretty much over in seconds. If it isn't, in seconds it's done. It's messy, there's police involvement, there's so many things wrong with it, and you can be technically proficient and train in karate and not be able to do it in a street fight. So what I tell people to do is to totally separate anything to do with the word self-defense, take it out of your mind and just enjoy your training, because you're going to make you stronger and fitter and a better person. It isn't about that. But then when it comes to doing it on a screen or doing it for a video game, the person watching it wouldn't want to see a street fight. They wouldn't want to see it over in seconds. They want to see something flashy. They want to see some fun. The thing about the games is that it's supposed to be enjoyment. Even if there's some violence in there, it's still enjoyment. Just a basic kick and a basic punch, you go, well, what's this game? This is nothing. So
back to your earlier point that it'd be similar like a different persona.
Right. Yeah.
One more question, anyone?
Bueller?
We got one.
So are y'all all still actively training in martial arts? And like, if you are, how often are y'all training?
We'll go down the line.
Well, I didn't get your question, sorry.
I train every day.
Okay.
Every day. It's my hobby. It's my whole life. I enjoy it. It's everything. Everybody's like, when do you stop? When I'm dead. Really? Yeah, because I just enjoy it. I enjoy the research. I watch it all the time. Everybody's like, well, what do you do for a hobby? Well, that's what I do. Well, what do you do on vacation? Well, that's what I do. Well, don't you do anything else? No. What sports do you play? Martial arts. What kind of movies do you like? Martial arts and Godzilla. So I just really enjoy it. Even watching bad stuff, I learn from it. It's what I love. It's different, and it's different than a person. It's just, I always find it interesting. There's something always in it that I just like to watch it or do it. It's not boring. It doesn't suck.
I still train every day like my brother. And once again, it's like Ian said, it's for self-discipline, and you're not there, you don't want to kill anybody, you're not there to train to I gotta kill one guy in one punch. I mean, obviously there are people that train that's fine, but that's more or less to conquer what they have in themselves to overcome those fears, once again, all three of us have mentioned.
Yeah, it's in balance. I don't go crazy anymore. I'm not like,
Yeah, same as you, every day. Train every day. Yeah, every day. But the training now, I'm sure you'll agree, is you're trying to fight old age.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to fight other people, you're trying to fight old age, stay supple, stay agile. I think it's more mental than it is physical as well. Because as you're older, you do suffer with anxiety. You do get depression. And if you train properly, you can really counter a lot of that.
That's great.
Well, we're all going to the gym. That's my big takeaway is we got to start training martial arts more. That's what we got to do. Big round of applause for our panel. They were great. Learned a lot. It was a lot of fun. You guys are tables upstairs if they want to come and say hello, buy pictures, kind of stuff. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, thanks for having us, because we wouldn't be here without your support and without you.
Yep, thank you, God bless.
And there you go. That's the end of this week's podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. learning about the behind the scenes on both the Mortal Kombat games and Kasumi Ninja for the Atari Jaguar. And I remember back in the day with Super Nintendo and Genesis, the difference between Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. Super Nintendo basically was devoid of anything having to do with blood, and the Genesis, you were able to have the blood actually either on, off, a different color, or regular red. So the Genesis kind of won out over the Super Nintendo with both graphics and being able to have it as close to the arcade game as possible with the inclusion of blood. And when it comes to Kasumi Ninja, I don't know too much about it. I really didn't know much about the game when it was announced about having an actor from that game be on the panel. I learned a little something new about a game I didn't know about. So that was really special, and meeting the actors who played both in Mortal Kombat, which I've done through the years, and with Kasumi Ninja was a very special moment, and I always cherish them. And you know what? It's really great having these people at the Midwest Gaming Classic every year to tell their stories. And with that said, that's the end of this podcast episode. I greatly appreciate you watching or listening to the podcast wherever you choose to watch or listen to them. And remember, please subscribe, like, and comment. It really helps out the podcast a lot. And until next time, take care, stay safe, and game on.